The possibility of a recession is looming large as the Federal Reserve raises interest rates in the hopes of driving down inflation. President Biden's critics argue he is not doing enough to address the issue and say rate hikes could cause more economic turmoil. Let's bring in Rick Newman. He's a senior columnist for Yahoo Finance. Hey, Rick, good to see you.
Hey, guys.
So do you think that the president has taken a hands-off approach to the economy? What are the other ways to lower inflation beyond the actions of the Federal Reserve? If that is the criticism, what other things could the president be doing?
Well, Biden says he's taking a hands-off approach because he wants the Federal Reserve to be the organization that addresses this problem. And it is the Fed's job to address inflation. That is the whole reason we have the Fed in the first place, really. That is its main job. If Biden could do anything to make this situation better, he would absolutely do it. The problem is he can't. There's just very little the president could do by executive action, and there's not really very much Congress can do, even if it wanted to do pass laws or find a way to address inflation. This is just not an easy problem for politicians to solve. So Biden has basically said, look, this is on the Fed, and I think he's doing that for two reasons. Number one, he wants to make clear that, unlike President Trump before him, he's not going to hector the Fed to do this or that. He's just going to let them work on their own. But at the same time, Biden is giving the message, even if it's subtle, this is the Fed's problem, not my problem. So I think he wants voters to say, well, maybe it's the Fed we should blame rather than the president. But I think a lot of voters are not picking up on that message.
So the whole thing is to the whole idea is to cool things off a little bit, right? And we are getting reports that Americans are pulling back on some expenses like restaurants, apparently travel, but I don't know. I mean, there was chaos at the airports. Everyone's expected to go for a drive this holiday weekend. So I don't know. But that's what some reports are indicating. So what I want to ask you is, I know that the idea is to not slow things down to the point where there's a recession. But could a small R recession be a good thing?
It could be a good thing for some people, but what happens during recessions is people lose their jobs. No matter how bad the recession is, some people lose their jobs. So there are always silver linings to recessions, even terrible ones. The last one, for example, took home values down 20 or 30% and made them a lot more affordable. So if you were a buyer back then, that was great. If you were an owner, not so great. What the Fed is really trying to do is engineer a so-called soft landing. So the economy slows but does not enter a recession, and that is sort of the optimal outcome for everybody. Now, whether it can do that, this is kind of a dark art. It's hard to know when to get this right because you make moves that you don't see the effects of them for months, and you don't know right. I mean, it's not like taking a digital picture where you can look at it right away and see if you need to take another one. Sometimes you don't know what the cause and effect is going to be for months. I will say that some of these things that sound like bad news are actually not such bad news. So, for example, people are buying less stuff, less goods, and as you pointed out, everybody wants to travel now. That is what we've been waiting for to happen. That is good news that that's happening, because during the pandemic, people were stuck at home. They spent way more money than usual on stuff, which is why one of the reasons we got inflation in a lot of goods, and they did not spend very much going out or traveling. So now that we're seeing those spending patterns shift back to what you could call something looks more normal, that is actually good news for inflation, because less demand will bring prices down.
As you probably heard, former Treasury Secretary Larry Summers said recently that increasing domestic oil supply could help lower gas prices. And the White House is considering a federal gas tax holiday. What would it take to get prices at the pump down?
The number one thing that would get prices at the pump down would be an end to the war between Russia and Ukraine. That accounts for most of the recent increase in oil and gas prices we've seen. That doesn't look like it's going to happen. So what else can we do? People here in the United States, I mean, people are very frustrated. I have conversations with people all the time. Why doesn't Biden do something? The government does not control the oil and gas industry here in the United States. This is in the private sector, and it's up to these companies to decide whether they want to invest the money to increase production more. And a lot of people don't realize this, but the oil and gas industry here in the United States got absolutely hammered in 2020. All the companies that are now making really great profits, Exxon, Chevron, and so forth, they had record losses in 2020 because nobody was buying gasoline. I mean, demand cratered during the pandemic. So they did everything they could to cut capacity back then. And just because oil and gas prices are high for a few months or even a year does not mean they're going to stay high. And these companies that lost a lot of money back then, they simply do not want to invest the money now to increase capacity because they think prices will just come back down and they'll end up losing money all over again. So we are seeing an increase in oil production here in the United States. It's ticking up. It's not really ratcheting up. So probably we're going to see a little bit of relief in the fall. And then maybe by next year, gas prices will be well under $5, back falling down toward $4. And of course, everybody would like to see gas prices with a 3 on the front rather than a 4 or 5. We might get there next year.
Yeah, that would be nice. It's going to be really hard for people to feel sorry for oil and gas companies, but you make a very good point about how much they lost in 2020. Rick Newman, thank you very much.
Bye, guys.
Bye.